Hi everybody, Cindy Daytalk here with Queen Bee Creations. And today we're gonna do something a little bit different. I have been just dying to use the tapers, kind of the icicle molds from IOD's new Christmas release, both the angels and the Santas. And because this is my first use, I haven't put any clay in them. I haven't put any resin in them. They are just straight out of their package, as you can tell by all the crinkly noise. So they are brand spanking new. Now, the thing about these particular molds is that they are food grade. They are food safe. So before you've done anything weird with them, they are perfectly fine to use in your kitchen. And there are lots of people, cake decorators and bakers and cookie makers and all that kind of stuff, that buy them specifically to use with food. So I do have a video on the channel. It's going back a couple of years, but it's still perfect. Where I did sugar cookies in these, and I'm going to post a link to it because if you have not tried sugar cookies in your molds, and especially look at all the detail in these, think how cute these would be for sugar cookies. I have the perfect recipe on there for it. What's important with whatever cookie recipe that you use is that it's one that does not spread, so that when you release this onto your cookie sheet and bake them, that you get all those beautiful details still in your cookies. So go follow that. In the description of that video is the exact recipe to be able to use. But know that there's people that are doing this with fondant and people that are doing this with pie pastries, the leaves, and decorating all their pies with it. I've been dying, I tell you, to do these with chocolate. So what's awesome about this is that as much as you can use a double boiler to be able to melt your chocolate slowly, I'm going to use my microwave because I have one in here and I do not have a stove in here, so that I can do that here. Now, a couple of things about the chocolate. I am using, by choice, Belgian chocolate. So these are expensive chocolate discs. You could use the discs that are called candy melts. You'll get them at most craft stores. Most bulk stores will also carry the candy melts. So they're different from this. They aren't pure chocolate, so they have some additives that make them snap and get a good texture to them, which means that you don't have to worry about the whole chocolate tempering thing. So chocolate tempering, you have to melt, cool down to a certain temperature. It's a thing. I don't anticipate that I'm not doing this professionally. So I'm not worried about if I get the perfect snap as people eat them, because quite honestly, my family is barely going to look at them and then they're going to devour them. So I'm not going to worry about tempering my chocolate because they're not going to be sitting around. I'm not going to be having to worry about whether or not there's a perfect snap to my chocolate, whether or not they start to bloom, which means the cocoa butter rises to the surface or not. I don't care. So if you are a big chocolate aficionado and it just drives you crazy that I'm not tempering the chocolate, well, you just need to leave now. You already know what you're doing, so you don't need to watch this. The candy melts don't require tempering, so just melt them, use them, you're good to go. If all you've got is baker's chocolate or chocolate chips, then you know what? Melt it, use that, because there's too many people telling us what to do in our lives. Do what you want with the chocolate you love. And that's all I'm going to say. So what I am going to do, I have some Belgian milk chocolate. I'm trying not to just eat the chocolate because it's going to give me a migraine, but oh man, it smells good. I'm going to start with the white chocolate. So I'm going to do two things. For the three angels, I'm going to fill them entirely with white chocolate because we're going to decorate them afterward. With The Christmas ones, I will pull you in overhead because I am going to fill them partially with the white chocolate first. And then I will melt the milk chocolate and fill them. So these we're going to two-tone with chocolate. So in essence, they're done once the chocolate is all done and hard and we can release them. So we've got a couple of steps to go, and the first step is melting. So I am going to, I've got my handy dandy glass Pyrex. So I'm gonna fill it with my white chocolate. Now here's the thing about melting real chocolate, especially if you're doing it on a double boiler, because the bottom has water in it. You cannot get any water in this, in the melted chocolate, or it will seize, which means it's going to become a really hard lump and you cannot remelt it. You could take cream, hot cream, and kind of melt it down to create a chocolate sauce. So don't despair and don't throw it out. I mean, why would you ever throw chocolate out? But what I will do is I'm just going to melt this in 30-second increments. I will melt it for 30 seconds. In all actuality, I'm going to do 60 minutes to start, and 60 seconds. Don't do 60 minutes. 60 seconds. So 1 minute, and then I'll stir, and then I will do another 30 seconds at a time, stirring in between, because at one point there will be enough residual heat in the chocolate to be able to melt this down. And I can, as I go, add more of these as I get more room. I mean, I could have broken them up and then there'd be even more space, but, you know, lazy. So I'm going to go start melting chocolate. I will come back overhead once I've got some melted chocolate to be able to show you what I'm going to do. I'm excited. Now, you can see that my chocolate still has lumps in it. That's okay because it's still going to continue to melt. And the glass still stays warm. I don't want to overheat this. It gets really picky, and quite honestly, white chocolate is finickier, most picky. I don't know. What I want to do while it's still like this, before I fill these entirely, is I want to work on this. What I do have is a brand new little brush, which just allows me to kind of put my chocolate into the places that I want. These are pretty detailed little molds. So I just want to kind of almost paint my chocolate in there. Where I want the white, that's where I'm going to put my chocolate. And, you know, you could use, I have little stir sticks. You could use whatever. I just find the paintbrush works well for me. But you can see them going back and backfilling. Now, as my chocolate gets a little firmer, I may have to go back and reheat it. That's okay. But what you want is to just fill in whatever segments you ultimately want to be white. And then you're going to go back in afterward. And this is going to have a chance to kind of harden in place. So we'll have the opportunity to kind of have it stay where I want it to stay. I haven't used these molds, so I don't even know what some of these details are going to look like. But, you know, there's certain things like, okay, here, let's get this entire star filled with white. Because I'm using the brush, I can kind of push down a little bit into, because this isn't going to move like resin does. And the nice thing about this is it doesn't require gloves. I can just lick off my fingers when I'm done, and it doesn't require a mask. I can breathe in chocolate fumes. That makes me happy, and there's no calories in the fumes. So I am going to get these guys fully painted out. And then, let me just leave my brush where It's not going to do any harm. There you go, just stay there for a second. And then I will simply come and fill these big long molds fully. Just kind of pushing it out a little bit with my spoon to get to fill all of those points. And then I need them to cool. I need these long ones, these filled ones, to cool to room temperature. But I can also put them in the fridge or even in the freezer. And I'm probably, when I go to unmold them, I'm going to have had them in the fridge for sure, just for them to be nice and firm. But this is how I'm going to fill them. So I'm going to finish painting out all of them. And then I'll fill these up. Now, I just melted all of the white chocolate because I can simply just pour this out on a piece of wax paper, let it harden again, and then put it back in my kitchen cupboard. What I also brought, though, were these teeny tiny little gingerbread guys, and I can kind of paint some of the details in on white and then fill them with any of the excess milk chocolate that I have. So, you know, it's kind of the, don't waste the melting process. We have our white chocolate in our little Santa molds. These ones have unmolded already. I'm just letting them come to room temperature. I'd put them in the freezer and I want them to be a little bit drier before the next step, but I've got another batch of them in there as well. And this, we are just going to layer our milk chocolate. Oh, that was more than I needed right in that cavity because the white was already there. And where we've got the really solid white chocolate, that's going to look really white. Where we've got this very light, like in here, we're going to have some of that milk chocolate echoing up through it. Now, the one thing that I'll say about this is if you were using candy melts, then they come in multiple colors. So you could have done, you know, Santa's hat in red, and you could do these in multiple colors. So it doesn't have to be just the pure chocolate shades as I'm doing here. All right, let's take a look at where we're at with this. Now, I did video my unmolding of the items, and for whatever reason, it didn't work. So let me show you where we're at. When we look at our Christmas ones, our Santa ones, our two-toned ones, this is how they're looking. Now, I love the fact that, you know, his hat where we didn't do solid is a little bit more modeled because of it. The little end just popped off of this one. These get very delicate. So here's what I do. I've got two sitting over here on plastic. I think you guys can just see them at the bottom of your screen, because to put them back together, I just take a little bit of heat. You could do a candle, you could do whatever you happen to have. Melt the end of the chocolate and then reattach them. So melted chocolate is a glue. You could also just melt some chocolate, paint it on, dip it in, whatever. When it came to the angels, what I did get was gold edible luster dust. Now, this comes in, I just got gold. You could get gold, silver, purple, pink. I mean, it comes in virtually any color. So you could go to town on these if you wanted. But I just took a different brush. So again, one that hasn't been used for anything else. And you just paint it on. You just kind of dust it on like you would any other kind of glitter dust. Now you could do it as much as you want. This is heavily coated. This is much lighter, so using a lot more white space because it's white chocolate. But, you know, kind of go light-handed if if you want with it. They're just lovely. Now, the nice thing about this, I've shown this to you in chocolate, but again, you could do this with cookies, and you could very easily just decorate them with the luster dust onto your sugar cookies. That would be absolutely beautiful too, right? That it doesn't have to be, that was one of my glue jobs. Look at that. Those two-tone ones on the Christmas, I really love. I think that they are just stunning. Oh, his bottom is not quite glued. But look at that with the little snowman in the center in the white chocolate. So for packaging these up, and here's my little gingerbread that I just had leftover chocolate that I just put into another little candy mold because it's lovely Belgian chocolate. People would just like to have a little nibble, so they can have a gingerbread. To package these, you know, I would do a plastic sleeve with a cardboard backing so that they're a little less fragile. The cookies themselves will be even less fragile than these, but you know, some of these tapers have such a delicate point to them, right? That you got to think about cookie snapping. So what you could do is just make the cookie to here or make your chocolate to that point. You could cut it off sooner, which would be perfectly easy and reasonable to do. And it just decreases the fragility. I mean, if you look at this snowflake one, that whole point, that's just snapping, waiting to happen. But you know, once you've made them and they're out on a tray, you can keep them in the fridge to keep them a lot firmer than right now. They're at room temperature, and they'll be a little more durable, but they're going to be prone to snapping, let's face it. So you could make them shorter and they're still absolutely stunning. These are just beautiful and just a fun and different way of using your molds. Now, I had washed the molds and dried them before I used them, just because I don't know what comes from the factory. So they were all clean. I'm going to clean them again. Me being me, I mean, you can put them in the dishwasher to be able to clean. Once I've used anything for resin, though, it does not go for food again. So if you're somebody that you know you would, I mean, these angels around the base of a really tall cake, look how stunning that would be. I mean, there's a lot that you could do with these in the cookie, pastry, cake decorating world. So if you're inclined, I would tend to keep one for my kitchen and one for my crafting if you do both, right? And I don't keep doubles of every mold, but there are certain ones that I think are really kitchen friendly or decorating friendly, and you might want to consider that. But doing the luster dust rather than considering a piping, you know, following the lines and doing piped icing, it's a lot faster, a lot of fun. Kids could definitely be doing that and be able to go to town with all kinds of different colors of the luster dust and just dipping and dragging it over the surface. But the angels kind of lent themselves to the gold, I thought. So let me know what you think of this one, guys. I am studiously trying to avoid eating tons of chocolate, but I have mounds over here on wax paper firming up that is unused that I'll baggie up and take home and chop up and use in some of my baking. But these are just stunning. This is just so cool. I'll take some pics so you can see better what I'm talking about here, but I hope that you give this a try. It doesn't take a lot of skill. Getting them out of the molds, definitely go slow, right? Those delicate points, very prone to snapping, but you've seen how to fix them, and I snapped tons. So it is what it is. Looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks as always for tuning in. And until then, take care.